And we're back.
Hey, we're back. Great to see you, Carlos. And we have with us our special guest, Rachel Conrad. How you
Hi,
doing, Rachel?
guys. Hi, it's great to be here. I love coming.
Uh-oh. What happened?
I have some double audio going.
No,
I'm
Mike
me?
has technical issues.
I'm
Oh.
good now. I'm good now. Rachel, we've had you on the show before, and since that time, you transitioned into a new role in life. I want to call you Dr. Conrad, but you won't let me.
I will not let you. Yeah.
You won't let me call you Professor Conrad either, but you are teaching now. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah. So starting in the fall, I got the opportunity to co-lecture a class in the Stanford Graduate School of Business called Winning Writing, which is all about writing and communications. It's super fun. And I taught it again in the winter quarter, and Stanford asked me to come back and double the number of students and to teach it on my own. So I decided to go for it. So it's like my own little mini pivot here, and I decided to go full time and just do the teaching gig. So I'm also still on some boards and I'm taking some clients and things like that. But really, the Stanford gig is my main gig. It is so much fun. The students are incredibly amped. And by the way, when you talk to students in the GSB, I would say the biggest plurality of them want to go into climate tech solutions. And of them, probably more than half of them want to go into food. So
right. Did you say that you might know someone? Did you tell them you might have a connection in that space?
Yeah, you have somebody you know.
Well, Pat Brown was a guest speaker in my fall class. It was an incredible class. It was all about crisis communications and how to deal with haters and, the lobbying industries and the Cattlemen's Association and stuff. He was a huge hit.
I would love to hear the Pat Brown How to Deal with Haters lecture. That would have been great. For those of you who don't know, Rachel was with the production board, and before that, she was working for Pat Brown at Impossible. And before that, you actually had worked for Elon Musk. Right. Now that you're even further removed from Elon, do you have any inside Elon baseball stories you could tell us? Like any kind of scoops or?
I mean, honestly, I really, I do not pretend to know Elon today at all. I mean, I worked for him from 2008 to 2011, and that was really dark days of the auto industry and the global economy. It was Lehman Brothers liquidity crisis. General Motors and Chrysler had both declared bankruptcy. It was really perilous times. So Elon was a very humble character, I would say, and it was really, really difficult. He's really inspirational, right? And you can say what you want about him, but he's done more to decarbonize the transportation sector than anyone else. I still have great memories of the guy, right? But again, I don't know the newest incarnation, the ex Elon, right?
It's the ex Elon.
It's not who I worked for, right?
When he got pilled, some kind of Trump pilled or something, but we don't know. We're not going to talk about that on the podcast today.
No, that's not food tech
news.
Yes.
And I'm excited because I always love your opinions, Rachel. You were also a former journalist, writer for CNET. So you have lots of a great lens to put on the stuff.
Yep. Happy to give my spin on everything.
And I did see you last week. I think we may have passed each other in the hallways. I was at the Future Food Tech Conference. We did a quick summary of that last week, but since you were there, because you were working at venture capital, I want to bring up the first story. I think it was Elaine Watson and wrote it for Ag Funder News. The title was "People Were Scared." This is a family show, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's in the headline. People were scared shitless. It gets real on stage from pessimistic VCs. In that article, it was basically quoting journalists on stage who were basically giving kind of, misery, talking about like what they're hearing from their investors. And one quote really struck out to me in particular from Vipula Shukia, who is the senior VP or senior program manager at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And she said she saw a fundamental disconnect in timelines between expectations and the venture model versus the patience that's required for both the technology and development and the technology market penetration and scaling in agriculture. The expectation of short-term returns, which is endemic in many venture models, is not consistent with agriculture. I've heard this from you, Rachel. I've heard this from Dave at the production board, particularly around things like horizontal, vertical ag, et cetera, inside ag, precision ag. What do you think is going on here? I mean, is this kind of in line with what you're hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to Elaine for actually calling this, right? When you go to Future Food Tech or World Agritech or any of these conferences, if you literally just take at face value what the majority of people on stage are saying, you must take it with a grain of salt because, frankly, most of the entrepreneurs there are positioning their companies, that have 2 months of cash runway or whatever. They're positioning them for an M&A, or they're trying to raise a round. They're trying to continue this facade that they're an exception to the rule, et cetera. But I think that Elaine did a great job in sorting through all of the BS, frankly, and getting to the real, which is that, ag tech is, the scale and the complexity of it is just beyond anything that, VCs usually shoot for, right? So the question of whether it's ag tech is a VC backable niche is a really good one. And I don't think we have the answer to it yet, but every single week you see new companies hitting the wall of insolvency, going into, ABC or bankruptcy, getting bought, but for pennies on the dollar or just stock exchange or whatever is that is the reality that we're in right now. And I don't think we're going to get out of it. That's the one thing that I think, Elaine, that article could have gone a step further, right? Which is, for the entrepreneurs in the audience, is this a VC backable model? Unclear. But will you VC, will you entrepreneur who's already taken venture money, will you be able to get another round? Probably not. And why is that, right? So I lived through this at Tesla, right? You brought it up. So in 2008, nobody was investing. We were in the liquidity crisis, Lehman Brothers shock, everything else. And all of the doors on Sand Hill Road were just bolted shut. And while Elon was not the household name he is today, he was very well known in Silicon Valley. He was PayPal mafia, right? And even Elon could not raise a penny from Sand Hill Road. So we got a couple of $50 million investments from Daimler and Toyota, which is nothing for the auto industry and like barely gets you door handles, right? And then we got a $465 million federal low interest loan from the Department of Energy. And that's what really got Tesla to the next level, which is, production of the Model S and, mainstream mass market kind of sedan. And, then we ran out of money again and we didn't have any other recourse. So that's why we went public. That's why we did an IPO. It's because we couldn't raise any money on the private markets. And the point is, we're in a very similar space in the world of food tech and ag tech. The VCs who had invested hundreds of millions of dollars in these, food and ag tech companies in the run up, right? The peak ZERP bubble days, 2021, et cetera. They're not going to, in the next cycle, be like, yeah, let me revisit that thing I did in the last cycle. No, now they're all onto the new thing, right? They're all onto the new thing. So when these VCs say they're asking, their boards, right? They're on boards. They're asking their companies to get to cash flow break even and profitability. It's because they're not willing to put in any more money. So that's kind of where we are.
And I think, I framed it in ag, but I also think she was writing about, and they're talking about the long road to production around things like cultivated meat. Yeah. And, when you compare something like cultivated meat to a car, you're selling those cars for $40,000 a unit. There's definitely a demand, at least in an early market for that. We're not even sure that the cultivated meat is going to be on sale in any wide regard over the next 5 to 10 years. So if you're writing those big checks, how can you foreseeably write a big check for something like cultivated meat when the road to market may take another 10 years?
You're not.
And on top of that, it's also kind of that basic version of just like wanting a short-term return on their investment. And I think we talked about this last week, like the video game industry is going through something very similar, where like all these big companies are like just jumping ship because they're like, we don't see the return on investment right now that we spent $500 million in this game. Where is that, where's that return? So I feel like that seems similar to this kind of industry.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think if you can't get to cash flow break even or profitability, and you can't get government loans, which are very difficult, right? I mean, a government loan program is not going to help you if you have 6 weeks of cash runway, right? I don't know, maybe there's some Hail Mary pass with like the Jeff Bezos fund, or something, but I doubt it. So I just think we're going to see a lot of companies in the space just going bankrupt and quietly folding.
There was a lot of people walking around last week at the Future Food Tech Conference. I've heard this has been the case at other alt protein or kind of future food conferences where there's a lot of people, really pushing the VCs hard, trying to have those conversations in the hallway, and the VCs are kind of running because it's a tough story for them to have right now. I do want to bring up the next.
Elaine makes the good point in the article. Like, think about it from their perspective, going to their LPs, their limited partners, and saying, yeah, we know that none of these just forget, like none of these are in the marketplace. It's like we poured in all this money and we don't even have proof of concept, right? Like they're pre-commercial still, and they might be for the next several years. That's not gonna fly. So I totally understand why VCs are just kind of not really into the space right now.
Let's move on to the next story. I know we could talk about this other stuff for an entire hour, but I do want to get to the next stories. And the next story up is not cultivated meat, but it's actually a technology called molecular farming, which I don't know if you guys had looked at the production board, but it seems like it's getting traction. I know that last year, the Good Food Institute called it essentially the fourth leg of the stool around alternative protein. And the idea here is you're basically using seed crops, row crops, as a production factory for proteins. And an Israel-based startup called Polopo, it's kind of a funny name.
It is.
Announced their platform around their molecular farming technology that uses potatoes to actually produce egg protein, which I thought was pretty cool. And what's more scalable, what is actually can produce at a higher level than row crops? I mean, we talk about the expense of vertical farming. You have to build these giant robotic farms. But when you talk about putting things in row crops, Rachel, that's like centuries old technology, albeit with like a more genetically modified, more high tech row crop.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with this. Again, similar to the point with the VC funding, is this cool tech for the sake of cool tech, right? Is there going to be a market for this? Unclear, right? And how much will it cost to, incentivize farmers to move to this new seed or potato crop or whatever it is, right? Again, go back to this idea that the margins in food and ag are just razor thin. And so how much is it going to take to not only get, proof of concept on this one, but to get the regulatory approval throughout the world, that's going to be a big row, to hoe on this one. But we'll see. Again, interesting technology, right? And, I hope that the entrepreneurs behind it are really thinking critically about whether this is VC backable for the next couple of rounds. And if not, where are you going to get the money? Is there some Israeli state program? Is there, I don't know, where are you going to keep getting capital?
Well, and like you just mentioned, Rachel, like the idea still is, and this is just a business 101 thing. Do people want it? And there's so many like just question marks when it comes to all this new stuff, new proteins. Some might just, take off, impossible, et cetera, but like some might not. And so I think when you have VCs like looking at that, they're like, well, is this going to work out? Because potatoes, eggs, it might not.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's an input, right? It's not going to be, you're not producing a fake egg. It's essentially producing the proteins that would be almost identical to what you get out of an egg. It's much like precision fermentation is like Perfect Days doing with their alternative proteins that go into like whey that goes into cheese, etc. So they're just saying it's another way to do it. There's other companies like Mulek, which is doing it. I think Motif also started to do it, which is, their company's gotten tons of funding. They were spin out of Ginkgo Bioworks. So we'll see how it goes. It's just another interesting technology. And it is, like you said, Rachel, pretty early days.
I think we're at the point, though, with all of these that we've proven that the technology works, right? That there are different ways to produce proteins that don't require, half of the Earth's land mass for animal agriculture, right? The question then becomes one of adoption. How willing are ingredient companies and others in order, to buy this stuff, and how cheap can we make the products, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to spend the whole day talking about all proteins. I want to talk about something that's more closer to my heart in the form of sugar cereals. And who here on the podcast has grew up eating like Captain Crunch or Frosted Flakes? I'm
sure.
definitely guilty of that.
Yep.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think Carlos, you said maybe a few years ago you started trying out these new keto, better for you cereals that are essentially like facsimile of what we used to get when we were kids. Magic Spoon, I think, was the most visible one. I think they came out in 2019 or so. And I tried them. We did a review of them on the Spoon. First of all, what do you think of them?
Well, it was actually like, it was like we're going into the pandemic and I was trying to find foods that I could just stock up on. And I remember I always wanted to try these. We all grew up with like sugary cereals and like, let's eat better, let's eat healthier. Also, I'm a sucker for advertising. And just look at this picture. If you're watching the video version, come on. I'm cute. A sucker. It's cute. But no,
bright
so
colors,
I went
the kind of cartoony.
The colors, the cartoon. I went all in. I bought like the huge, like, subscription model, which we talk about in the show all the time. It's a big spend. And I'm like, I'm going to be in my house a lot. I'm going to have all the cereal I want. And it's all healthy. Look at 12 grams of protein. It tasted terrible.
I liked it.
Really?
I actually thought it tasted okay. So I
Sandpaper
thought,
for a lot of them. That's what I
mean, it's like the Diet Coke version of cereal, right? Like it doesn't quite taste like that.
The texture is the problem.
There was a bunch of problems. Like some of them, the chocolate one was okay. A couple of them, the texture was bad. We always talk about mouthfeel. We talk about with soy proteins. Just for some reason, some of these, and I'm not going to just say Magic Spoon, but there's a lot of these on the market still. Like the mouthfeel, if that's wrong, you can't continually eat this all the time because we want to, eat cereal every morning. So for me, it was not just flavor, but it was like mouthfeel.
All right. Well, I thought it tasted okay. I think people like you thought it was bad, but the problem I had is it was $10 a box for a 7-ounce box for basically 2 bowls.
It's expensive.
Cereal.
Yes, it was very expensive.
Right? And still is. And so that's like, so I always saw it as like a kind of a one-time purchase, not something I'd go back to. And so when I saw the story today, that Andrea Hernandez of Snackshot was kind of circulating on LinkedIn, on Twitter, that
there you go.
was on clearance normally for like $9 or $10 box, on sale for $2, and a big. Whenever it shows up in the shopping cart like that, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of Kmart's Blue Light Special. Remember that?
Yeah. That's a sad picture. If you're like a CPG brand, you don't want your brand in that. Yeah. I also think that they were showing up at another store for like $1. So I don't know quite if this is like the sign that this high protein keto based cereal trend is over, but it seems like maybe people are getting wise to the fact, hey, this is really expensive. It doesn't taste that great.
Well, I mean, the takeaway here is like Magic Spoon has clearly jumped the shark, right? That one image is really a difficult place to be for that company. And hopefully, as like a crisis comms person, junkie, hopefully the team is taking that seriously and they're going to respond, and they're not just going to like, we're just going to back in and tell our own personal story of growth and resurgence, right? And they're going to take that seriously and respond.
Yeah. I mean, it's your cereal company still at the heart of it, right? And you've got to make a great product. And I think that when we talk about, Mike, you just said like, is it over? Is that kind of like healthy, cereal over? I think about when I was a kid, there was a lot of healthier cereals that tasted good. It was like, the cheap budget version of Cocoa Puffs or something, but it was actually healthier because it didn't have high fructose corn syrup in it. Yeah. You can do that, and I think that you can mix the cool marketing that will, make me buy it and a bunch of people buy it. But you can also just change the ingredients. I don't know. I think it doesn't have to be over.
Yeah. And if your guilty pleasure, like your once a month guilty pleasure is like a bowl of sugar. So just buy like a real box of Lucky Charms and have a bowl of Lucky Charms and then go
moderation.
It's like, just eat it in moderation. Yeah. And so the thing is I think you had it right, Carlos. You were stuck in the pandemic. You're sitting at home and they really took off, I think, in that 2020 when everyone was ordering food online,
Mhm.
and you're sitting home and you're bored. And that 2 years later, I think they raised $85 million.
Good
And
golly.
they were going to use that. They use that to expand into Target, into Walmart. And I see them at Costco. And I think now that they're probably just seeing that the return customer, I think the challenge for them is getting those return customers, because a lot of us will try it one time.
Yeah.
But getting me to go back, that's where they're probably having trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are very conservative in their brand affiliations when it comes to food. And it's sometimes it's easier to, disrupt the supply chain or others than to disrupt consumer behavior on this kind of thing.
Before we leave the story, Mike, I made this in AI to show you what I thought some of the cereals tasted like. That's what it tasted like to me. Some styrofoam boxes.
Oh my God.
All right.
That was made with AI.
Oh my
Full
God.
disclosure. Sorry. Okay.
That's what it tastes like in your mouth. That's the visualization.
Yeah, some of them did. Yeah.
AI, what this are. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Those listening in, if you're listening on YouTube or Twitch, feel free to drop a question in. Let's move on to this next story. I'm a big fan of Trader Joe's. Like, I've actually kind of dialed down my Costco shopping because I realized you can just get almost the same pricing on a per unit basis. Yep. And the food's so much better at Trader Joe's. Mm-hmm. And so I was really fascinated to see this latest story in the Capital Daily News. That Trader Joe's has actually opened a smaller format store. They're normally 15,000 square feet. They opened a 2,800 square foot size store in New York City called Pronto. And interestingly, the name Pronto comes from the founder of Trader Joe's, Joe Colombo. His original chain of independent stores were called Pronto Markets, opened in 1958. And this comes from that. But yeah, I thought that's pretty cool. Yeah. But I'm a huge Trader Joe's fan. Any way I can get maybe more access to like that in different formats, I'd probably be open to it. How about you, Rachel? Are you a Trader Joe's person?
Oh my God, I love Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's has the unique ability. I will go in there for like canned tomatoes and bananas, and I will somehow spend $450 routinely. Yeah. It is like the best upselling vehicle brand ever created, for me anyway. So I would actually say that maybe Pronto, the concept, will work in New York City or something like that. I don't think that they have plans to take this everywhere, right? Most people I know, their complaint about Trader Joe's is they want more, right? They want it to be even bigger. You guys know they bring products in and out pretty quickly. You love some new flavor of hummus, boop, it's gone the next week, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think people want more of it, not less. So again, maybe if you're in New York City or, heart of San Francisco, something like that, it works. But for people in the burbs, for people who really, once you can get through the parking gauntlet of Trader Joe's, like you actually want to spend money and some time there. So I would think that they should go all in on expanding the experience at the normal stores.
I think that's a good point, because also if you think about those Amazon stores, are they doing well? I don't know, like the smaller kind of kiosk ones.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Again, I think it's a Manhattan thing, right? And then you get into this phenomenon where it's like the media are in Manhattan, so they're covering it like this is huge. And it's like it actually doesn't really work in the Detroit suburbs or Dallas suburbs or something like that.
Yeah,
are you calling me a coastal media person? Is that what you're calling me, Rachel?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Yes.
I hear the subliminal messaging.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
What I love about Trader Joe's is just, I'd love to get a deep dive into how they come up with all their sourcing for all that amazing food with their packaging. It's great. There was a totally unrelated story is Trader Joe's, but I don't know if you guys saw that story about the huge hookup culture at Trader Joe's, where basically everyone's,
I believe
it's not really for this show, but I couldn't believe it. It just totally changed my view when I go in there.
I'm listening.
Everyone who works there apparently is hooking up with each other. Apparently to like
there.
Yeah, it's a fun place to work. I mean, you talk to people.
It sounds like a fun place to work.
It's like a great
place.
They
ring the bell. There's a good atmosphere in there.
It is. They're all wearing Hawaiian shirts. It's this big luau. Come on. Yeah.
That means every time they ring the bell, that means someone else is hooked up. That's actually what that means. You didn't know that.
That means perfect.
Right. Score in the stock room right there. Yes.
I want to give a shout out to Metropolitan Market, though. I think that's only in the Northwest. Is that right, Michael? But Metropolitan Market is awesome, and that's the main healthy food store I go to. I wish they would expand. But anyways, moving on.
We got one last story of the week, and I think we're going to do this almost every week, Carlos. We're going to show a robot of the week, and this new one, we're going to show Cheffy.
I have
Cheffy
things to
was
say.
actually on Shark Tank, I think about 2 weeks ago. Got an investment, and the CEO of Cheffy is actually coming to Smart Kitchen Summit. So we're going to hear from him live and in person at the Smart Kitchen Summit. So, but what did you guys think of this? I don't know if we could play the video, Carlos, where it actually shows it.
I'm on it.
We're on it.
There it is.
So look at this thing. It's different than other in-kitchen robots that I've seen. It looks almost like a make line almost.
Yeah.
It's, you know, those watching live could see how it's just kind of pouring from one bowl to the other. It's building bowl food.
I saw the Shark Tank episode, and I have thoughts, especially because
I'm trying to remember the pricing, Carlos. Was it like $40,000 to build this into your?
Yeah, that's the point. So here's we're not going to bury the lead. The fact that is it's super expensive, and I think all the sharks on Shark Tank said, "Who's going to afford this? What regular person's going to afford this?" Then they were like, "Well, there's a cheaper version that's only $15,000," and I was like, "Okay, I'm still out." So I don't want to be harsh on it because it looks cool what it does. The fact is you have this little food. So this is the robot itself. And you basically buy that little installment of all the food above, and then it pulls the food out of that thing, the robot arm does, and then it cooks it for you. I don't know if I need it. I'm still on the fence, but the point is the price point's insane.
So this is the point of view from behind what you're seeing in the front of the counter. Okay.
Yeah. Here's you could see that there. There's all the food. And that's kind of a version of like where the food would go. And then
where's all the food?
So the food's like here in these little capsules.
Yeah.
And then this is what it looks like on the countertop.
Got it.
So the robot arm picks up these little dishes, gets the food from the top, and then cooks it.
Yeah, I don't want this. It takes up a lot of real estate on my kitchen counter, first of all. Second of all, I actually banned my husband. He's a big technophile, from buying the, Google or the Apple Glass, the goggles, right? The immersive goggles, because I just feel like we are all so isolated, so alienated from each other. There's this loneliness epidemic in the world, in America in particular. And one of the few places where we like to convene and come together is around food and in the kitchen, right? So the last thing I want to do is have a robot make me dinner. Like I actually really love cooking. And
I do too. Yeah.
So, you don't need to spend a lot of time cooking, right? That hash thing that they put together, that would take you 10 minutes to make max. So why would you want to, if they were making some really unique dish, or there was a level of variety that I couldn't achieve, yeah, okay, maybe there's a market for it. But honestly, for like a stir fry, why?
Tiffany from the audience asked, this is most likely for a commercial application, not residential. Actually, I think they are targeting primarily homes.
They are primarily. Yeah, I saw that.
And yeah, so my feeling is this is very much like a rich person's thing. Or
yeah.
I mean, we've seen Sony doing a lot of research around robotics and intersections with food applications in the home, and their primary motivation is around accessibility for people who are aging in place. I can see this really maybe for someone who couldn't necessarily cook for themselves anymore if it was fully automated. I'm not exactly sure it is, but I think we're kind of not quite there yet with the applications where automation can cook for you. But Rachel, I think as our population gets older, and this is why we're seeing a lot of research in Japan around this, aging in place and making food is like a real true life application where there's value. You think maybe like 10 years from now, using automation to make food makes sense?
I don't know. I still am doubtful. And here's why. For $40,000, you could hire a fractional home chef who comes to your house every single day and makes amazing, great food, then goes down to your neighbor's house, right? So I do hear you that there is an emerging market for food innovation, especially for older people, right? In America, in Japan, all over, honestly. But I'm not sure that robots are the way to solve this one. I just think with the labor price being, what it is, it just makes more sense to have one or two companies have a, nationwide presence, call 1-800 dial a chef, right? And we'll come to your house and we only charge you 10,000 a year. And we're going to do, whatever, each chef does 10 of them, right? That's a great living. So I just don't understand the value.
Did you ever do Josephine? I don't know if you remember that marketplace where it was essentially Airbnb for home cooks. And they had it in the Seattle market for a while, where you basically can go online and I can find someone who's a home cook that makes great food.
Yeah.
I can order that food. And I think they ultimately integrated with delivery, but I would go and pick it up. But like, why not use our neighbors who are cooking and somehow connect them in a marketplace where they can cook for their neighbors? And like, it does seem like that could be like a more affordable, scalable approach without putting robots and everything. Not that I think at some point robots in your kitchen might be cool, but for feeding a lot of people more easily, maybe like a marketplace like that makes more sense.
The other question I have is on the infrastructure. I mean, we bought this house with a, gas stove and we want to get rid of it and get an induction cooktop. And while the induction cooktop itself is not astronomically expensive, it ends up costing $20,000, $30,000 because we have to gut our kitchen effectively to get it in there. So do I really want to do that for this? I don't think so. So I'm questioning whether even that 40,000 is my full out-of-pocket cost. It could be more.
Right on top of that to renovate.
Is the gutting partly due to electric upgrades?
Yeah.
Have you looked at the Impulse Labs induction cooktop where they basically have a battery inside and you don't actually have to upgrade. You can use a standard electrical. You don't have to upgrade because it essentially charges the battery and then that battery powers your cooking when you need that extra power. And
that's cool.
The battery acts as a battery wall backup for your house if your power goes out.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a pretty ingenious.
Yeah. So that's great. I love that. That's a cool, really good idea. I'll check that out.
If you think about refrigeration though, Michael, like this uses refrigeration. So what are you going to do there? To Rachel's point, you're going to have to change parts of your kitchen.
Yeah. Does your robot actually open the fridge and pull it out?
No. But it's a Cheffy thing. I saw the pitch. There's a refrigerated unit you can buy, like the additional whatever.
Yeah.
And so again, that's not going to work in my apartment, right? Like there's going to have to be some sort of, the manager's going to have to come in. And really quickly to play devil's advocate to the robot, because you were talking about the chef's thing. For single people like me in a small, teeny apartment, which is a ton of us, okay? A ton of us. The robotic thing could work. Like a robotic arm that goes in, it might have to be part of, again, the manager putting it in, right? The apartment complex putting these in. And so you have to like basically, get this deal with the apartments or whatever. But in general, I, like you, Rachel, love cooking. I think it's a meditative experience. I don't ever want it to go away. And it takes me 12 minutes to make my dinner usually. Yeah. And I like doing it. But that said, I think Cheffy and some other ones are talking about doing things before you're home, right? Yeah. Like say I'm running home and it's already started it for me. Or if it can affect and grab things from refrigeration, maybe it makes something better than I could make it. Maybe there is a way to do that. So I think if it's a cheaper version that is simple and could be for like people in apartments, maybe. But again, that just seems down the road with infrastructure.
Yeah, maybe if you're building a new senior citizen home, for example, right, with Alzheimer's care and all of that kind of stuff, and every unit that includes a kitchen or a kitchenette features this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But honestly, I would presume that the general contractor is going to say it's way cheaper for us to just have a really nice facility where everyone comes and socializes for dinner, right? But maybe there could be some use case like that. I don't know.
I think you guys are no fun. Yeah. I'm not getting my big robot apparently in my kitchen anytime soon.
No. I want the robots. I just want them cheaper.
Yeah.
And this thing actually is like just a much more scaled down version from what we saw from Moly. I don't know if you remember that 10 years ago. It was a company called Moly Robotics, would have these big arms. And that guy who created that, Mark Olenek, is actually coming to Smart Kitchen Summit too. So both these guys will be there. You can ask
What's he doing now? Person.
He's still working on it. So he actually has a commercial version and a home version. Okay. And that's for kind of the high end people who really want a truly robotic kitchen. So, but we'll see. We'll see where this goes. But I think for both Rachel and Carlos, we're not going to see this in your homes anytime soon.
No, I like cooking.
I'm going to get the induction cooktop and then let's talk. Yeah.
Let's talk. Hey, okay, Rachel, where can people find out more? I know you're teaching now. You're at Stanford. You are on some boards, but if people want to find you on socials, is there any kind of social they can find you on?
Yeah, you can go to my LinkedIn site, just Rachel Conrad with a K, and I'm happy to chat. Just drop me a DM there, and we'll get in touch. I'll send you my email and phone number.
All right, Carlos, any last words?
Yes, really quickly for some business work. The Spoon is on social. Please follow us on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube. And we do a lot of short videos now. And we're putting up one now, I think tonight, of this Dodo pizza app, which uses AI to help you make pizza and really crazy combinations. As you can see, I think that's strawberries and pasta.
Why is there pasta? Why? That's
just
one of the gasoline over the whole pineapple Hawaiian pizza thing, right? That's really weird.
There's Fruit Loops in one of them, so it's a lot of combinations.
Wow.
Is the AI is the Chat GPT going awry there and doing some bad combos? Is that what we're seeing?
No, I'm calling it Chat G Pizza. That's what it is.
Oh,
but it really is it already exists, and it's Dodo Pizza, and the video goes up tonight, so check it out on our socials.
That's great.
All right. Yeah. All right, Rachel, thank you as always. I will always love hearing from you. Carlos, until next week.
Super fun.
Until next week.
Hey, guys.
Bye. Ending